Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Serapio. Just days after Donald Trump was once again elected U.S. president, a special cabinet committee that was struck originally during his first term was revived and met in Ottawa.
President Trump respects strength, and he respects people and countries who are strong and clear in defending their countries, in defending their national interest. That's what I've always done, and that's what I will continue to do.
The Committee on Canada-U.S. Relations is chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister. The Public Safety Minister, Tonda MacCharles, serves as Vice Chair, as they and the other members of the committee, including Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly, prepare for Trump policies that could challenge and create pressures here in Canada. Well, joining us now are Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail, Tonda MacCharles, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, and Joël-Denis Bellavance, Ottawa Bureau Chief for La Presse. Hello to the three of you.
Hi there.
Hi. So listen, ever since Donald Trump was elected earlier this week, we've been getting these messages from government officials, from ministers saying, don't worry, put the anxiety aside, we have things under control. But how worried is the government about this development, Bob?
Well, they're very worried. That's why they brought back the Special Cabinet Committee on Canada-U.S. Relations. In fact, they met today in their first meeting after establishment. They'll be meeting again next week. Everybody in government is deeply concerned about this because the president has said, or President-elect has said, he's going to bring in big tariffs, 60% on Chinese goods, 10% on the rest of the world, and that's our biggest trading partner. So they're deeply concerned about that. And they're deeply concerned about the fact that he wants to remove 11 million undocumented migrants. But that's probably going to be something like 1 million a year. And where are they going to go? Well, they don't want to go back to El Salvador or Guatemala. They're going to try to come up north. And the government is deeply concerned about that. And that was the key discussions at the meeting that they had today was how do we deal with Trump on tariffs and how do we deal with protecting our border?
Of course, two key issues, which we'll dig into a bit deeper. But what's your measure of how the government's feeling right now, Tonda?
Well, I think they are worried, and they've been worried and planning, to different degrees for months and months. But, even 5 months ago, this started for the Liberal government preparing for whatever outcome in January when they struck their 3 ministers and Ambassador Hillman kind of team to tackle it. But, even months after that had begun, Steve Verhoeven, who was the last top negotiator for Canada on the NAFTA talks, told me that they weren't ready, that Canada wasn't ready for this review of NAFTA that's also about to come up, the other big sort of freight train coming down the tracks under a Trump administration. So they have to do more than just stand up a committee. They've got the beginnings of plans in the works. They have done a lot of outreach and had a lot of conversations from the embassy team vis-a-vis lawmakers in the U.S. on both sides of the aisle, and that matters. But when it comes to, I think, ramping up that cross-partisan effort that we saw the last time around, that's in its infancy stages. There aren't conservatives actively involved in the federal outreach. There are premiers, conservatives, and other officials doing their own work, having meetings with U.S. stakeholders themselves. But I think that we'll see to what extent. I think now is the time, the crucial time, right? From now to when he is inaugurated, I think now is when you'll see sort of really a lot of hard work. Basically, the government's agenda has now been derailed and overwhelmed for the next 4 years, no matter what government is in power this time a year from now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, Trudeau was elected with these big thoughts and ideas. And, of course, one of the major impacts right off that throws him off agenda is the first Trump presidency. And now, as we approach another election, again, Trump is back. How worried is this government about it?
I think it is worried, but also because of the perception that they have in Washington about this government. They know that this government is at the end of its life. So they know that within 6 months, we could have the federal elections that would mean a change of government here in Ottawa. And talking to some people in the business community, the sense that I get is that the premier that is most ready to face the music is Doug Ford in Ontario, and that's a surprising development. And he wants to play a big role in that future Team Canada efforts that will be deployed because he is the president of the Council of Federation this year. So he wants to bring the provinces together, try to meet them as many state governors as possible, so that the thinking is that we don't have a Buy America policy installed in Washington, but a sort of a Buy Canada America policy. And so that's a big endeavor that Mr. Doug Ford will be making. I know Mr. Ford talked to Premier Legault on Wednesday night to discuss this kind of strategy, and so it's going to be deployed over the next few weeks, but led by Mr. Ford, who has developed great relationship with state governors. He concluded some deals with economic memorandum of understanding with the 5 states over the last 12 months. So that means that Mr. Ford was really working ahead of time, and to me, he's the most prepared politicians in Canada to face the music.
Well, he's also got an election coming up, so that's what he wants, to make himself look good. Yeah. But don't think that we're ever going to go back to what happened in 2016 when there was a Team Canada Canadian consensus approach. This is something that you heard Ms. Freeland and Joël talking about today. They would love to have this. That isn't going to happen anymore. They're a year away or less than away from an election campaign, likely to be in the spring. Do you think Pierre Poilievre's going to help them out? Not at all. He's not going to help them out, and I don't think some of the premiers will either. Western premiers like Danielle Smith, why would she help them out? They're just hitting the oil and gas sector with big pollution taxes, so she's not going to help them out. Even the business community, very upset with the way the government has handled the economy and the way they impose capital gains taxes and bank taxes, for example. They're not going to play ball anymore either, because everybody knows this government's going to be gone in 6 months or 8 months' time. So I just don't think you're going to see that same kind of approach, which was very effective last time for sure.
Very effective. But, I also wonder, because people are saying we know Donald Trump now, who he is. Well, we also know the dynamics between Donald Trump and this government already as well. Where does
Mr. Trudeau particularly?
Yeah, who he called Two-Face. So how does the personal dynamics affect Canada's ability to change Donald Trump's mind on this?
I mean, look, there's a few points to be made there. The public perception of that relationship is one thing. They did have some very rocky moments after the G7 in Canada and after the NATO summit, where the hot mic caught Trudeau and other leaders talking about Trump. But oddly, and I wrote a whole piece on this last week, oddly, this is a relationship that has also found common ground in an odd way. I mean, one person described it to me as, Trump likes famous people, likes celebrity, and sees Trudeau and his father, of all people, as, kind of like him. And so they have these all kinds of conversations the public hasn't heard about that are seemingly friendly. But I think it goes way beyond that. I think the relationships across the border need to be on a broad base, premiers to counterparts in the state government level. But ultimately, whoever they knew in the last administration, a lot of those folks have gone, a lot of them have changed. And a lot of the ones who were there before said Trump was unfit to govern. He's got a lot more hardliner contingent behind him now. And some of those relationships have to all begin anew, don't they? And at the end of the day, honestly, the takeaway I had from talking to all these people last week on the Conservative and Liberal side was that really it's not just the personal ties that matter, that, yes, that matters when it's close to a deal and you can maybe push something over the line. But when the policy interests align, that's when something works. And that's going to be a hard match to make between Canadian and U.S. policy right now.
Yeah, you talk about personalities and relationship between the two leaders. Who will Mr. Trump ask to work on in his administration will be very important. Elon Musk will play a big role, as we know. And Elon Musk is not a big fan of Mr. Justin Trudeau. He tweeted sometimes very negative comments himself about Mr. Trudeau. And there was also some actions, though, some decisions that were made this week that were not le hasard, a coincidence. When Ottawa announced that they was banning the Canadian branch of TikTok in Ottawa, following the victory confirmation of Mr. Trump, that was a very much planned move from Ottawa just to show that they take security matters very seriously. And they were very happy that it made the news in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times in the United States, because they wanted to send some signals very quickly that they will take very seriously the issue of security, especially with China.
Well, the one good thing is Robert Lighthizer, is, what Financial Times is reporting, is coming back as international trade representative. That's a really good move for Canada, because he knows he didn't negotiated the new NAFTA agreement, and he's got a relationship with his government. But more important, he understands Canada and what's at stake.
Except that he loves tariffs. He is most bullish hawkish on tariffs in that entire administration. He never put the brakes on Trump on tariffs before. And so I anticipate that he's going to be whispering to Trump on 10% tariffs, go for it.
Yeah, well, of course, we're watching all of this ahead of the inauguration on January 20th.
Yeah.
Three of you, thank you very much. Although, you know, with Elon Musk, can you still say tweet? Can you say he X'd it now? Because it's X now, right? Okay, Bob, Tonda, JD, thank you.
Thanks, Michael.